Welcome back to Kafka Internal's Crashcasts. I'm your host, Sheila, and we're continuing our journey through the fundamentals of Apache Kafka. Today we're diving into an essential part of Kafka's architecture, creating topics. But before we get started, let's kick things off with a quick quiz for our listeners. Victor, would you like to do the honors?
Absolutely, Sheila. Here's a question to get our listeners thinking. In a Kafka cluster, what's the maximum length allowed for a topic name? Is it A, 100 characters, B, 249 characters, or C? There's no limit as long as it's a valid Unicode string. Take a moment to think about it, and we'll reveal the answer at the end of the episode.
That's an intriguing question, Victor. It really makes you think about the practical aspects of working with Kafka. Now, before we dive into creating topics, could you give us a quick refresher on what exactly a Kafka topic is?
Certainly, Sheila. A Kafka topic is essentially a category or feed name to which messages are published. You can think of it as a logical channel for streaming data. If we were to use an analogy, you could compare a Kafka topic to a filing cabinet in an office. Just as you organize different types of documents into separate drawers in a filing cabinet, you organize different types of messages or events into separate topics in Kafka.
That's a helpful analogy, Victor. So, if topics are like filing cabinets, I imagine creating a topic is like setting up a new cabinet for a specific type of document. How do we go about creating a topic in Kafka?
That's a great way to think about it, Sheila. Creating a topic in Kafka is typically done using command line tools that come with Kafka. The most common tool for this is a script that we run from the command line. We tell this script that we want to create a new topic, give it a name, and specify which Kafka server to connect to.
That seems straightforward enough. But I'm curious, Victor. Are there any default settings when we create a topic, and can we customize them?
Great question, Sheila. By default, Kafka will create the topic with predefined settings. However, you can indeed customize these settings when creating a topic. The two most important settings are the number of partitions and the replication factor.
I remember we talked about partitions before. They're like subdivisions of a topic that allow for parallel processing, right? But what's a replication factor?
Exactly right about partitions, Sheila. The replication factor determines how many copies of the data are kept across the Kafka cluster. It's crucial for fault tolerance. If you want to specify these when creating a topic, you can use additional parameters when running the command.
Could you give us an example of how we might use these parameters, Victor?
Certainly. When creating a topic, you can specify the number of partitions and the replication factor. For example, you might create a topic with 3 partitions and a replication factor of 2. This means there will be 3 subdivisions of your topic, and each partition will have 2 copies across the cluster for redundancy.
That's really useful, Victor. It seems like there's a lot to consider when creating topics. Are there any best practices or common pitfalls we should be aware of?
Absolutely, Sheila. Here are a few key points to keep in mind. 1. Choose meaningful names for your topics. They should reflect the type of data they contain. 2. Be cautious about creating too many partitions. While partitions allow for greater parallelism, they also consume more resources. 3. Consider your replication factor carefully. A higher replication factor provides better fault tolerance but requires more storage. 4. Remember that you can't reduce the number of partitions later, so it's better to start with fewer and increase if needed. 5. Use a consistent naming convention for your topics, especially in large systems.
Those are great tips, Victor. I can see how proper topic management could really impact the efficiency of a Kafka system. Now, before we wrap up, could you tell us a bit about topic lifecycle management? Can topics be modified or deleted after creation?
Certainly, Sheila. While you can't reduce the number of partitions for a topic, you can increase them using a similar command to the one we use for creation, but with a different flag. As for deleting topics, it's possible but should be done carefully. You can use a specific command to delete topics, but make sure you've enabled topic deletion in your Kafka configuration first.
Thank you, Victor. That's a wealth of information about creating and managing Kafka topics. Now, I think it's time to reveal the answer to our quiz question. Can you remind our listeners of the question and give us the answer?
Of course, Sheila. We asked, what's the maximum length allowed for a topic name in Kafka? Is it A, 100 characters, B, 249 characters, or C? There's no limit as long as it's a valid Unicode string. The correct answer is B, 249 characters. Kafka does have a limit on topic name length, and it's quite specific at 249 characters. This is important to remember when designing your topic naming conventions.
Interesting. I'm sure that caught some of our listeners by surprise. To wrap up, let's quickly summarize the main points we covered today. 1. Kafka topics are like categories or channels for streaming data. 2. Topics can be created using a command line tool. 3. When creating a topic, you can specify the number of partitions and replication factor. 4. Best practices include choosing meaningful names, being cautious with partition numbers, and considering replication factors carefully. 5. Topic names in Kafka are limited to 249 characters. In our next episode, we'll be discussing producing and consuming messages in Kafka. Until then, keep streaming. And don't forget to subscribe to Kafka Internals Crashcasts and leave us a rating if you're enjoying the show. Your support helps us reach more Kafka enthusiasts.